Good morning, everyone. How are you? Thank you guys for coming back to the channel. I'm about to drop something here. Thank you for coming back to my channel. My name is Estela with Leonesa Nica. And today I will be talking about this. This is the Australian Home Journal magazine from January 1st, 1957. I'm actually working on making a pattern and a mock-up for this dress, which is pattern 8861. After making a lot of research and finally getting the courage to work on this pattern that I really love, I'm gonna blog about it. I will not be showing any work because it would be too lengthy. However, if you at some point feel that would like me to do a sew along, then let me know, or to show you how I drafted the pattern. I'm gonna talk about it, but I'm not gonna show you how I did it, just give you pinpoints. But anyhow, I have already posted about this on Facebook groups. I posted on the it's called the Vintage Sewing Community group, and I also did that on oh my goodness, I forgot, but I'll leave the links down below so you guys can actually see what's going on. Okay, so I do not own the magazine. That's the first thing I'd like to talk to you about. I do not own a pattern either. Obviously, this is why I drafted the pattern myself. I'm not a professional as far as drafting. All my life I've been using sewing patterns. However, I have had instances where I had to draft patterns, and luckily me, they have come out okay, more than okay, I think. But I still don't have full confidence on that, so that's, brings me to that point where I will be taking pattern drafting and designing. I'm taking that class this fall, 2021. So yay, that's a good thing. Okay, but I'm sidetracking again. So how did I come up with all this? Well, it turned out that I saw a post a year ago, and I just love how the dress turned out for the person who recreated the dress or that came up with it. The fantastic part for me was when I saw the dress on the person, she wasn't a zero size silhouette. So that kind of motivated me to making the dress, since she looked more on the nice, meat on her bones kind of figure. Much taller, I have to say, because she has a much, she looks to me like she has a much longer torso. So anyway, so the dress looked really beautiful. She made 3 attempts. I ended up following what she was doing, and she has other dresses that she had made, but she did come up with the beautiful outcome of that dress. In the other hand, this is my first try. However, I did completed all my pieces, except for the facing. I didn't do that. But you need to know that if you don't have this pattern, or if you would like to make this dress, you would be you will be able to get that if you actually send me a message or leave me a message under comments or comment. I will go ahead and send you copies of what I have. As far as the actual copies or pictures that I have from the actual magazine that someone had already shared with me. And then there's also another group that you can go in. It's called Vintage Australian Home Journal Magazine Group. So you can actually go in there too, in the Facebook, and you can actually find the posting that has this with the instructions on it. The instructions inside the magazine has pictures of what the pattern pieces look like. I went ahead and I drew mine. As you can see, I drew mine. This lighting is too bright, so won't let me show you. Okay, there you go. And then this is in the back. That's basically all I needed for me to really understand what's going on. Each piece has instructions as far as how wide and how long it should be. Except for the facing, it does give you some instructions, but it doesn't really tell you much of it, because once you complete the bodice, then you have to go and take your pieces, and that's what I did, and cut along that to come up with the facing of the dress, of the bodice. What else to say? Okay, so in order for you to complete the yellow dress pattern number is 8861. You must have instructions to pattern 8860, which would be the blue dress. Okay, so you need both these instructions, the pattern instructions for these two dresses, because as I was writing it down, so you can see these are all this is my stack right here with, you can print them up and read through that, honestly, but I memorize and I understand better when I rewrite, so I rewrote the whole thing. So I have them all in here. Okay. I have a light over here that's just so bright, but if I don't do that, then the room is too bright, and I have very bright lights up here that I didn't turn on, because then I tend to look bad. Lighting is perfect, but when I'm sewing, but for these videos I just don't like too much light. But okay. So after I read everything, I understood everything. There are some terms in here, or some terms as far as the vocabulary on the instructions that I actually understood, because they're very easy to understand. Like, it says you have to machine. So machine means you have to stitch or you have to sew. It says overcast means to serge or zigzag the raw edges. It also says to tack. A lot of people don't know what tack means. Tack means you're going to sew securely or you're going to reverse stitch, okay? Frock, F-R-O-C-K, means dress. And just little things like that that may throw you off a little, but for the most part, these are very basic instructions for the dress. It gives you a bunch of steps. For the first dress, you do about 12 steps, and then at the end it gives you the notes for the pattern. Like for this yellow dress, it says the pattern is meant, the instructions they give you is meant for a 36-inch bust, 30-inch waist, 40-inch hips. And it tells you that you need 4.5 yards of 36-inch width as far as the fabric. I do not own much fabric that would be, I don't have any at 36 inches. I rarely have anything other than 100% cotton fabric that would be 45 inches wide. but most of my fabrics are man-made. They're not natural fibers. So they're more than 45 inches. So then you would have to make the math and find out how much fabric you would need for your own garment. I had to alter all of that and calculate all of that. So after you read all of this, my next step after reading all of this, before even cutting my pattern, was to calculate the measurements that are on most of the pieces, which would be this part right here and this part right here, and your skirt and the back. I didn't do much calculation. As you can see, I have my body form. It is this body form. Let me get the camera closer to it. Look at that. So it has my belly. It has my body. I actually went in and I had to basically remake the, like, pat it in to make sure that the areas where I chunkier would be on my body form, so that it would be closer to my body. So that I did that with my everything: bust, hips, waist. As you can see, this is what it looks like sideways. So this is my almost twin. And the way that I did the part that's most tricky, I think, is this part of the bodice. So I use tissue paper to be able, and white one, to be able to see through these tape right here. And I did use quilting tape. There are designer tape, but they're a little more pricey, and I lost the one I wanted to show you so that you guys could see what that looked like. There we go. It's just masking tape. See? But in a very thin, this is probably like, would it be 1/4 of an inch wide? I will test that right now. Yeah, it's 1/4 of an inch, maybe just a tad small, less, but that's what I used. That's what I used to do this, and that's how I came up with my measurements for my bust, since this body form is about my size. And I say about my size because I dropped a few inches. But after I did this and I did my mock-up for this and I tried it on, I like how it fit. I don't like stuff to be too tight on me, only because I don't like showing my rolls, and I wanted my mock-up to be able to breathe, since I'm gonna be wearing that at home. But when I do make my real dress, it's probably gonna be a tad smaller on the bodice. But for now, I'm just having fun with it. I honestly love the fact that I was able to do that. I'm gonna go ahead and bring the pattern pieces so that you guys can see what they look like. And I'm gonna go fetch that while I talk. What kind of paper did I use to finally make this pattern? I used construction paper, which is this one right here. They also have the brown ones. So this is the pink one. You find that at Lowe's. You find that at any hardware store. See, and it's a long tube. That light in my window. I'm sorry. I'm in Arizona, so sorry. I also own this other roll of paper, and that's more like a tissue type paper. I also have this other tissue paper that you guys can get at the dollar stores. And these are the pieces that I came up with. down all the information because it says on the pattern you must add these patterns don't, by the way, come with any seam allowance, so you must add your seam allowance. When I cut my pattern, I didn't add any seam allowance. So when I do cut my fabric, I'm adding my seam allowance as I cut. Okay, just so you know. And then I did my notches right here. There's one here, and there's one right here. And this is my front part of my bodice. That's what goes here. I have to say that I barely have any shoulders. So mine end from here to here. And so for that reason, it looks small, but on the pattern it looks much wider. So if you have, and then mine's slant too, you know, they're not higher. The cool thing is that you have to add, you must add, what's it called? You need to have and add your pads, shoulder pads, which this is what it is. These are the shoulder pads. At least that's what I came up with. I didn't do much padding. I do not like shoulder pads, but for this dress I just decided to go with it. So I'm doing me, guys. You know, you do you. Just so you know, this is the back of the bodice, and mine I had to cut the center back, but I was gonna do it on fold. Unfortunately, since I'm using I had to use bed sheets to make my muck up. I didn't want to destroy my other fabric. So there you go. This is why I have the, you know, I came up with that as cutting it in the center, which is totally okay. But if you do that, just don't forget to add your seam allowances. And then this is my skirt. These are the panels. I added on the panel, it should be slimmer and it should have a little more curve, but that's for someone who has no hips, no belly. I have a belly, so I had to round it up a little. So I thought, and you're supposed to cut 18 panels with this. Mine is on the fold, so it's much wider than that, and that was a big mistake. So that's the one thing I will focus to talk to you about, will be that part. You will need rulers. As you can see, I have mine back there. Okay, let's see. That light, guys, that's so bright. Okay, you can see I have all my rulers right there. And I used the the L ruler. And I used my curve ruler. And I used like a French curve to do these patterns. Okay, I will show you the piece that I've done so far, but I need to talk to you about the skirt panels. And nevertheless, I have 2 of these, and this is what my skirt is looking like. And those are the seams on each one. Guys, I was gonna mix this with the beige color on the bodice of my mock-up, but it turned out that I miscalculated. My pattern is too big for the panels, so I did cut 16 panels, and it turns out that I have way too many panels. It was just huge, so I miscalculated. So that's the part where you will need to focus the most, would be on your panels. Okay, it shows on the picture that the panel is open. Mine is on the fold right now, but when you open it, it's wide. just as wide as you saw on the skirt panels that I had already sewn together. That was just half of it. The other half, you know, that's just either the front or the back. There's no, on the pattern it doesn't tell you front or back, it's just telling you 18 panels. So you would have to come up with that on your own as far as knowing which one is your front and which one is your back. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I know that we all have different body structures. So for those like me that have a belly or and a butt, you would probably need the same length front and back. But there are people that are they have more, they're more slanted towards the front or they're towards the back. I'm not sure, if you're understanding what I'm trying to say. So with that, you have to calculate the length and you have to calculate, you know, your width and all of that stuff. But with those measurements, I ended up cutting more than I had to. In the pattern, these are my calculation, my measurements. So it says for the skirt, I have panel. The skirt panel is 2 inches at the waist and 9 inches at the hemline. So that means 2 inches at the top of your waist, and then at the bottom of the length of the skirt is 9 inches. So those are the measurements they give you based on someone who's 36 inches at the bust, I believe. Here, I'm blobbling now. Let me get this back. I just told you this earlier. And that's because I'm in the wrong. Oh, here we go. Okay, so the pattern tells you, I got lost. So the pattern tells you that the measurement for this dress is 1, 2, 6, 7. Here we go. It's 36 inches for the bust, 30 inches for the waist, 40 inches at the hip. My measurements, did I have them with me? I don't even have them with me, do I? I left them on the table, but I'm not going to get up and go back again. The thing is, after I calculated with all of it, because you have to calculate your skirt, the facing, the neck facing. You have to do your bodice calculation. And so what I came up with was that at the waist, I needed to have 2.5 inches per panel, and then I calculated 4 inches below my waist, 3 3/4 inches, and then 7 inches below my waist, which would be my hip, is 4 inches. The 4 inches below my waist is because I had to calculate my entire hip. So I did the high hip and the real hip line. And I do that all the time with all my garments because that's where I am bigger the most. So I have to make sure that when I do make my patterns or when I'm checking patterns, that I will be tracing and cutting at the right place or with the right amount of space. So that's what I did, okay? The pattern tells you that the skirt doesn't have any seam allowance, right? None of the pieces have any seam allowances as far as what the pattern gives you. So you have to add those seam allowances. So if your pattern at the top at your waistline for the skirt per panel is 2 inches, you have to calculate what I did, I calculated my waistline, divided that by 12, and then that gave me the measurement that I needed to cut my panel, my pattern. And this is what I came up with. So on the fold, this is what I came up with. When I sew with 1/2 inch seam allowances. I only use bigger seam, like longer seam allowances, like 3/4 to an inch when I'm making something that I'm not so sure at the side seams only, or in the zipper area, which if the zipper was in the back. In this case, because there's 1 inch on each side, I have enough space to insert my zipper. But nevertheless, that's what I do when I'm not sure about my seam allowances. So I make 2 patterns, 2 skirt panels separately, this one and a smaller one. So after I was done doing all of that and I was sewing these panels together, then I realized I haven't measured this on my mannequin or my body form. Maybe I should see what that's going on. So when I put it on, it's much wider than I needed. So I didn't get to do, and I checked that when I was done with 6 panels per side, like the front and the back. So when I was done with doing one part of it, by attaching those 6 panels, I was like, okay, wait, hold on. This is too big. It's not gonna fit my, my bodice, and I don't want to gather, and I don't want to have to, so I was like, okay, you know what, I'm just gonna play with it. I'm gonna be redoing the patterns because I also like how the skirt looks. I totally dig it, as someone would say. I really love it. So I'm gonna leave my mock-up the way it is, but I am making alterations as far as the pattern goes, and I am recalculating everything, and I'm writing everything down because I don't want to forget. I tend to forget when I get too excited or when I lose interest or something else comes along and I need to have instructions, and I need to make sure that I did write down those alterations. And here we go. These are my alterations. So on the bodice, it says for the cup area, this part right here, I had to add one more pleat. By the way, on the bodice part, this part right here, when you do that, it tells you that you have to gather. I didn't choose to gather on this mock-up because I didn't like how the gathers look, so I opted by pleating, and I really love that. I like how it turned out. So I'm doing me, like I said, so you do whatever you feel like you need to do to give you the look that you want to achieve. I wanted to achieve this look, but because I'm doing a mock-up, I'm playing with my mock-up, but I'm making sure that I can wear that dress. So at the same time, I'm writing down everything, and I'm going through the steps to make sure that when I do the new pattern, then when I do the new mock-up, it's gonna be more close to achieving the yellow dress look. However, let's not forget that we don't have that body shape, and so things will change a little. For example, now I'm gonna put the bodice on top of on top of the what's it called, the body form, so you guys can see. If you guys were to use my pattern, I don't know that you would be able to achieve the look on you because we're all different. Like if you see me back here, I don't know if you see, but I don't have much of a neck, and then I have like I'm like raised right here, like it has like a bowl or something, but that makes my back, the back of my dress, be longer as far as the part that goes on the shoulder, rather than to be the same length like the front, if you understanding what I'm saying. as far as the seam that goes in your on your shoulder. And I'm talking about this. Okay, that seam on the shoulder, I'm telling you. Yeah, that's better. This is the shoulder seam. Okay. It is on like this because I have that extra right here. So if I, whenever, and you know what, when I buy when I buy a store made garment, I always have to fix that, because it's too big for me up here, and if I just cut it even and put it together, it just doesn't fit right. Then I end up lifting in the back, and anyhow, so that part is a little higher, so just so you know. And then right here, this is the facing. This is what I come up with, but let me put it on here. Just because I want to come, you know, I want to show you guys, I don't have a long elongated body, so it's never gonna look as exactly like the model on the magazine. But I'm happy, content with how far this gone. So Chunky Me gets to have a new dress to wear at home. And and not only to wear at home, I can go and, you know, run errands with this dress. I thought about lining this dress, but we're in Arizona here, so the heat here is not the one thing that I want to worry about. I want to make sure that I don't have to worry about that. So here we go. Okay, so this here should be gathers. I will be doing gathers on the fabric that I'm planning to use for the dress once I'm done with playing with the pattern pieces and making a second mock-up, is, you know, because the fabric that I'm gonna be using for that is much lighter. It has more drape, so it'll look better with gathers. This right here wasn't gathering as much, so I opted to do pleats, and I do like pleats better. So when you do your pleats, make sure that they go towards the same direction on both sides, and I mean against their own direction. So if you want a pleat going in, they both have to go in looking at each other, or they have to be looking against each other. It really depends on how, you know, you want it to look. I did it so that it's facing down like this. So with gathers it's different. With gathers it's just going up, but here this is going down. With gathers it's just a flat gather, and it doesn't create much of this right here. And I think if you have a large bust, I don't know if gathers or pleats would be something you would do. That would be something you would have to play with on your own. So okay, now this part right here does not, that part is supposed to be through the inside like this. Okay, it's not even supposed to show, but I had to do that. I had to do that. I did that when I was adding it, and I was like, no, I'm gonna play with that way, but on my real dress it's not gonna be that way. I'm just gonna follow the instructions thoroughly as it should be. But then I figure, you know what, why not make another dress, right? A little bit very similar but different at the same time. So this is what I did. Okay, this is my facing. It doesn't tell you on the instructions that you would have to do the stitching that shows right here. And I did stitch that to make sure that this part of the dress doesn't move out, like it doesn't flip open, so it's like a stay stitch. Okay, and it doesn't show on the front. There's no stitching on the front of that. It's on the inside of the garment. So basically what I did is I went in and I stitched over the raw edges from the seam allowance. Okay, that's what I did. I did use interfacing, and that's what I have so far, guys. This is where my buttons are gonna go. If you can see the tape, maybe not. I put tape where my buttons are gonna go in my buttonholes. These are the buttons I'm using. So if you can see, that's what they look like on the dress. That's what they're gonna look like. I was going to buy, I actually bought it, but not for this dress. I went and I purchased these, which these are the cover button, the cover up buttons that you actually use fabric. You use a piece of fabric and you cover them. And this is what I was, what I was going to use originally, but because it's a mock-up, I decided, okay, I'm going to use these with the original dress, but I'm going to use these buttons for the mock-up. Where did I get them? I got them at Hobby Lobby. And these were $2.79, and these, three of them for $2.60, $2.59, I believe. And I was happy I got them. Make sure you take a piece of fabric when you go looking for your buttons. A lot of people tend to just go and buy and think that you can find the color by looking at it. If you're really good at that, then kudos for you. I'm not good at it. I don't have a good look at colors. I mix them up, and I may even be colorblind for some colors, especially when it comes to the pinks and the blues and the greens. So yeah, but anyway, that's what I wanted to share with you today. I haven't inserted my pads yet. This is what I have. They're not very thick, as you can see, but this is what I'm gonna use. I didn't want to add more bulk to my body. As you can see, I'm not slim. So I hope you guys like this video. If you have any questions, you can find me here. You can message me through my channel, or you can find me on my own Facebook group, or you can find my own Facebook group is So Classy and Creative. I will leave a link behind, under here. Let me know what else you would like me to show. On my next video, I'm gonna be showing this dress completed. I have to do buttonholes, I have to attach the buttons, and I have to complete the skirt. The pattern does not call for pockets, but I will be adding pockets to this dress, not through the outside, but invisible pockets, the ones that go on the sides that you don't really see, only because I will need those pockets. But it doesn't call for pockets. But then again, like I said, you do you, whatever is necessary to make you happy with your garments, because I think that's the whole thing about playing with, making your own clothes, is to use the fabrics you love, to do styles you like that suit you better and that you like how you look, and to add or take at your disposition, whatever makes you happy. In my case, I I usually end up like this. I start like this. I start with something original that's already on paper, and as I go, I start changing things around. Um, and I don't know how many of you are that way, but I love that I can do that. I love that I can change things around. And I always do try to come to the closest as possible when it comes to making a project. Um, but for some reason, I always have to change something. I always have to add or take. I don't know. It must be my body. The one comment I wanted to do before I go is that I have a short torso. So my waist a little higher than most people. And I don't like to elongate even if it was, I always like to keep a little higher just because I want to hide my belly. So it's most flattering when I have it at this length rather than lower. But as you can see on my actual body form, this is my block that I made, and that's where my natural waistline is sitting. It's right under my, it's just barely inches under my bust. And I love to look that way. It gives me a sense of a longer body. It helps me hide the areas that I feel most concerned or embarrassed to show. It's just, I feel like it's more flattering to me, not the embarrassing part. I don't feel that like that anymore, but there was a point in my life where I did. But going back to this pattern, guys, it's a very simple pattern to follow. The instructions are simple enough to understand. There are, I know there is a seller on Etsy because I did look it up. I will not leave a link. I will not look through it, but you will be able to find it if you go on Etsy. You'll be able to find sellers that will sell these magazines with the actual patterns that came with it, the actual pattern pieces that came with the magazine. I tried finding the magazine and purchasing it throughout the whole year that I waited, but because I never came up with it, I didn't want to wait anymore. And since it's summer and I needed something fun to do, and today is July 4th here in the US, so we're celebrating Independence Day, I thought I would do something fun for me. You would think I would make something in the in the colors for the flag, but a lot of people does that. It doesn't call my name on that, but nevertheless, we're celebrating. Thank you again for watching. My name is Estela. My channel is Estela Leonesa Nica. Give it a thumbs up, share and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye bye.